everyone, it's David here from Go Game Guru, and this is my first Go video. So at the moment I'm really just trying to learn the ropes of how to make a video, and well, how to make a half decent Go video. So I've set up this position on the board, it's sort of a whole board situation for us to look at, just so we have some interesting moves to talk about, and then afterwards hopefully you guys can give me your feedback and we can, I can learn how to make a better video next time. But obviously this is a position I've constructed. It's meant to look a bit like a real game, but if it were a real game, black's sort of got these stones floating in the center and these stones here. That grip's not very strong either. And then look down here. I mean, black appears to be dead there in the corner, so black would be feeling pretty unhappy right now. But let's just forget about this area for now and look at this area first, and then we'll come back to talk about that a bit later on. Now, as I said, these stones are floating in the center, so black would like to figure out a way to do something about that. And there's a lot of moves black can choose, here, some sort of pincer. But maybe first let's talk about a couple of moves that I think black really shouldn't play. And I know that's kind of maybe the wrong order to talk about things in, but these ones are important. So this one, just pushing here, this is something a lot of players, probably most of us, did when we started playing, and you tend to do that for a while until you learn stronger moves. And the attraction of that move is that white has to respond. But the problem is, after white responds and extends here, white's group is getting stronger and white's starting to get some territory here, whereas this stone, black's pushed here, and now black's got 5 stones in the center, and the group isn't really much stronger than it was to begin with. So this kind of exchange kind of helps white and makes black's group a bit heavier. So you shouldn't really play that unless you really have to, to survive. So another thing that people do a lot, maybe even more often, is to push in here. And then, normally it's a combination where they plan to push here next. And this is actually even worse, because this pushing exchange here, this removes aji from the position. So aji is the potential to do things later on. And if you don't play any move, you can play all kinds of moves around here. Later on you can do whatever you want. And the idea is that you want to wait and see what happens in the game so you can figure out which move is going to be best. So a good analogy for this is, have you ever been to one of those shops that, I'm sure you have, like they sell glassware or china or something similarly breakable. And often those shops are pretty small, or the aisles are really close together, so you have to kind of sidle along trying not to touch anything, because those shops, they always have a, you break it, you buy it policy, conveniently as well. So you really don't want to, you've got your money and you came to the shop, you wanted to buy something nice for yourself. And, if the first thing you see is you buy this. Now you can't spend your money on something else. You already bought that move. And in particular, you really don't want to break something, because then you spent your money buying a broken thing, which is pretty sad. So that's a good philosophy for playing Go as well, is in terms of keeping your options open, that you try not to touch anything and you sort of adopt the you break it, you buy it mentality. So instead of doing something there that's going to reduce our flexibility, how about we play here? And I think this is probably, in this case, the best move for black. And then if white wants to avoid being sealed in, she has to play this diagonal move here. Because if white tries to push there, it's a bit too slow, black will just seal white in. And if white attaches here, well, that's possible, and often that can be a good move. But in this case, now that white has played here and the shape is clear, now black decides, well, actually, you know what, I will buy that. I will buy this one after all. And then black pushes here. And cuts here, and because of this exchange here, white can't capture this cutting stone, which means white's sort of in trouble on the edge here, and in any case it's not going to be a particularly good fight for white. So this exchange was beneficial here. But coming back, earlier on, black didn't know white was going to play here. White would probably play here. In that case, black doesn't want to exchange that, because black might be able to do something better later on. Now, there's a lot of ways. In terms of local play, there are always several different ways you can play, which are kind of what we call natural. In other words, sort of sequences that occur over and over again that are composed of good techniques and shapes and things. And you know, pushing up is one idea, but the problem is that there's already a white stone here, so it's hard for black to really develop this area with this stone here. If black had a stone here instead, then pushing up would be a really good idea because black could produce a big area on the edge. But since there's a white stone here, pushing up doesn't look that promising, and what looks much more promising to me is for black to cap and take the high ground in the center. And now white needs to move out, and black can jump. And now black's managing to play on both sides because this white group is a little bit heavy. And if white takes this vital point here, black can think about playing something like that. Black could also connect, but this move aims to push and cut there. So because even though you might be worried that after white splits here, you've got two weak groups and there's a white stone there, so it looks a little bit busy. But in this case, because white's group is so heavy and has to move out slowly, remember black is just trying to settle this group. So he'd be happy if he could just capture these two stones. And because white has to move out slowly, black has time to play on both sides. So that's good for black. If you were worried about ending up with two weak groups, you could press here or here. But the problem is that these stones, even though they're a bit heavy, they're already quite strong because it's a bamboo joint. You know, it can't be cut. White peeps there, black can't do anything. Sorry, if white peeps there, you know, it doesn't worry black. So yeah, pressing, white's going to end up with territory, and black will end up a little bit over-concentrated if you do that. So that's not really interesting. So as I said, this move here, this move is interesting, and I think it's the best move for black. But there's another move that I want to talk about that's also interesting, and that's this one. And you might be surprised by this move. I mean, it's a terrible looking. I agree, it's a terrible looking move because white just plays here. And white has just drilled straight through black's shape, and black's ended up with the, you know, this awful broken knight's move shape. So, you know, but bear with me, you know, I can feel your laughter over the internet, but let's just look at this a little bit more. Now, after that, black plays another weird move. So, you know, if you're playing a game and black does this and then this, you'd be sort of like, what the hell is going on? But you need to be careful in this kind of situation because sometimes these kind of moves can be really powerful. So, I mean, what do you think black's trying to do here? Well, let's have a bit of a look. I mean, you might want to pause the video. I'll just give you a moment because you might want to think about this as a problem because it's quite complicated and interesting. Okay, but now let's just continue. This looks like the vital point for white's shape, but the problem is black's now going to enclose that white group, and these stones are going to be captured because white pushes here. See how this stone protects the cutting point? So white can't capture this stone here, and there's no way to break out because even if white Ataris everywhere, she's not going to be able to capture any of black's outside stones before she's captured. So descending here was a good shape, but it was a little bit too slow. So white might think, oh well, I got sealed in, so I really need to develop my group into the center. But this is what black's plan was, because black is aiming to capture those two stones, remember? And then if white blocks there, black can cut there. So that's not really good enough either. So do we have a better option for white? Do you think of a better move? This is an interesting move for white. And if black connects here, well, black's still aiming to play there next, so white can take the key point and escape. Now what did this move achieve? Well, if black still tries to cut those two stones off, white can play here, and see how this move is now protecting that cutting point. So this is looking like quite an impressive Tesuji for white so far. But, you know, black has other moves, so black might Atari there, and then if white wants to save these two stones, there's no other move but to connect here. And now what happens? Well, before, remember, we were worried about black playing here, but in this case, pushing here is Atari, so the situation's changed, and black has to connect, and white can break through his shape. So this is actually a really impressive counter to Tesuji, and, you know, after that exchange, there's no way for black to capture white's group. So, there's one more thing we should try, which is a sort of all-out way of attacking, just to push here. And then white extends here. And look, that's even more terrible, because now white's continuing to just split black's two groups without being cut at all. But this loose net looks like it might have some potential. The problem is that these stones here are not strong enough to support this kind of aggressive strategy. So you try to seal white in, but white's going to play there, and then you cut, and then white will atari. And what's happened now? Well, these four stones have been captured. So in terms of attacking, that was kind of a failure. I mean, it's not a terrible result because at least black got something here, but black set out to help these stones, and instead black ended up sacrificing them, and not very effectively, I might add. So that sequence almost works, but hang on, before we remove this, let's not back up so much, because there's something important here that I want to show you. So the real problem is when white ataried here. But if we back up to here, we can see that, excuse me, if black had a stone here or here, things would have been different, because then white wouldn't have been able to cut there, in which case these stones would be captured. So sometimes you can discover sort of key points in a sequence by sort of going backwards and investigating them. And that can reveal certain points to be the vital point. And I think in this sort of situation, this is almost a vital point. So if we go backwards from here, because remember this move didn't work, we can think, well, that didn't work, but maybe we can try and do something to play at the vital point. Because remember, black didn't play the pin, so black sort of chose this complicated route instead. But black's strategy is still to try and settle these stones. So you could try just jumping here, but the problem with that is it's too obvious, and white's just going to play there, and then black doesn't have an especially powerful follow-up there that's going to make it worth just playing here. Instead, black should try to be a bit more imaginative, and I think this is a very interesting move. And unfortunately, from this point, it's really complicated. There's so many variations, and I don't want this video to become really long and boring, so we won't cover all of them, but you'll be able to have a bit more of a look after the video. This is a natural move, right? Because we've split black's shape. Black's got a terrible shape. I mean, there are whole books written about not playing moves like this, all about making your stones work together efficiently, and this is sort of like the cardinal sin. But in this case, it's a really interesting move, because black can turn here, and black's aiming to play here next, so white runs away, and this stone's looking pretty bad. Black can push here again. This move is sente, because black's aiming to push and cut, or do various other things. So if white just plays here, and again there's a lot of moves that are possible, but black can do something regardless. Now, black can push here, and let's have a look at what happens. Cut. So, looks like they both cut each other, and then white extends to look after the cutting stone, and black can move out slowly here, and black's managed to save these stones. White doesn't have a way to surround them now, and these ones are captured. So this move here turned out to be quite interesting, and it's by looking for those kind of points where you can make two sequences overlap, and then you can play a double threat. That's how you become good at negotiating in Go. Now, as I said, we don't want to spend too long on this, because it's not really the key point of the lesson, or the video anyway. But just in case you're curious, if white plays here, black can cross-cut there, and then this and this are miai, so then white might think, well, I better play here instead. But then now jumping to here seems quite interesting, because now here, and here are miai. And if white harness above, black can push in there, and then white will have a difficult decision about whether to descend here or play there. If white plays there, black can atari and connect, and these stones are captured. So, black managed to succeed in the end with his strange move here, and another strange move here. Black managed to succeed in looking after his stones as he wished. So even though I said the one-space pincer I thought was the best move for black, the moves we've just seen are really interesting as well. Now let's have a look at the bottom now. As I said earlier, this group is looking pretty dead. And so, as you probably guessed by now, we want to try and do something to save these stones, and this move happens to be the theme of this video. And again, well, this seems to be the natural move because black's destroying his own shape, so let's play that. And then black might play this strange looking Tesuji again. Well, is it a Tesuji? Looks like it. White's got the counter Tesuji. And then if the sequence progresses in the same way as we saw it before, white might think, well, I can just keep extending and black's destroying his own position, and this move doesn't work. But you have to be careful because in this case, white's going to cut and black should block off that side so white can't escape. And then black's bamboo joint. The bamboo joint is very short of liberty, so that's one of its weaknesses you have to watch out for. Black needs to extend, and then white's going to seal black in, and then black's going to push again. White needs to fall back a little bit because otherwise black will Atari his way out. But let's stop here and have a look at the outside liberties. So black's got 1, 2, 3, 4 outside liberties. We don't count these in the bamboo joint because white can Atari there at any time. And white's got 1, 2, 3 outside liberties. So looks like black won the capturing race, which means not only did black capture these stones, but black also saved these stones, which is a pretty big success for black. So white needs to look for something better. Let me just clean up the board a little bit. Now if you're white, even though, I mean, you've already played to kill these stones. You've played here. So the last thing you want to do is give up these cutting stones because they're really precious. If you give them up, black will escape. But at the same time, I mean, if you read out that black can do all that and capture your stones, there's no point continuing to add more and more stones to the situation. So when black plays here, white should try to resist something like that. And then black can go here now, and these stones have no way to escape. But white can go here in Sente. Now black has to finish capturing. Now white can press here and sort of connect all of these stones together while putting a bit of pressure on the corner. So even though white would be disappointed that she lost these two stones, at least she was able to sort of sacrifice in an elegant way and take the initiative somewhere else. So, but if you're black, well, if you're black, you don't want to play moves that let your opponent sort of get out of trouble easily. So you might want to rethink your strategy. And when black plays here, so this move we already saw, but what do you think about this move? I mean, it looks really fancy, and in Tesuji books, whenever this sort of shape comes up, they always show, oh, black can play here and here, and white will play the counter Tesuji, because it's a Tesuji book, and they want to show you those moves because they're important and they're kind of cool. And also Tesuji books, they don't have much room. If in a book, you can only show 1 or 2 diagrams, maybe 3 for the solution. So they normally show that. But in this case, a much more practical move, when the knight's move works, is just to push here. I mean, it doesn't look as fancy, but it actually works better because remember we discovered this was sort of the vital point where white could offer a trade and get out of trouble a little bit. And then if white extends, which is natural, now black plays here, and white has to connect if he wants to, or if she wants to save these 2 stones. And now black can play the knight's move. And the situation is actually the same as before. White can maybe do something around here to try and, at least get some compensation in the corner. But it's quite different to before because white can't sort of Atari here and capture in Sente and then press. So these stones are captured, these stones are alive, and this is a great success for black. So that really brings us to the end of this first video. I hope you've learned some things. What I wanted you to learn, or what I wanted to focus on in this video was how to think about aji and how to preserve your RG, so you're more flexible later, and also how to find key points by reading and then sort of going over a sequence and to sort of look for the nexus of two different sequences so you can create a powerful double threat. And I think hopefully that's helpful. And in any case, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and leave me some feedback in the comments. And if you think I've glossed over some, we didn't have much time, so I've glossed over a lot of sequences, but there will be an interactive lesson on our website just below this video. So I think probably if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link somewhere down here to go to our website, and you can see some of these sequences in more detail. And if I haven't covered something that you were wondering about, then please feel free to leave a question, and we can talk about it more. And also let me know what you thought of this video and how maybe I can improve my next video. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.